Hello and welcome to Pro Spotlight, where we feature the pros on Taxfyle's platform. On this episode, we have Luke Tingey from Mesa, Arizona. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Luke, what is it that you're passionate about? Outside of taxes, outside of the platform that Taxfyle offers, what is it that you love to do in your spare time?
I think first and foremost, I love my family. I'm married and have two little boys. They're 3 years old and 1 year old, and they kind of are the center of everything that I do. I love being able to get home and spend time with them, wrestle them and rough them up a little bit. They're just so fun to play with, and so any time I get to spend with them is time well spent. Outside of that, I'm an outdoorsman. I like hunting and fishing, riding horses. Um, so I spend a lot of time out in the mountains, hiking around. Any chance I get, I'm trying to leave town and get up into cooler weather. It gets really hot here in Arizona in the summers, and so I like to spend a lot of time in the mountains where it's a little bit cooler.
How did you develop that love of being out in the outdoors?
My family owns some property in northern Arizona, and so I remember growing up, we would spend almost all summer up there, and as little kids with a whole bunch of cousins, we would just play there all summer, and so I think that's where it all started, my love for being up there. And then as I got older and I started to drive and I got my own truck, I started to realize that I could venture out even farther than where the cabin was and go into the national forest and look for animals and look for streams and lakes to fish at. And so I think it all started from there. And as I've got older, I've got into it even more and look forward to someday being able to share that with my kids.
What's one of those memories from when you were young and experiencing the outdoors with your family that you hold dear and you want your sons to be able to experience as well?
Yeah, I remember my first big game hunt. I was 10 years old. That's the first uh, age that you're legally allowed to hunt here in Arizona. And I went out with my mom and dad. Surprised my mom even came out with us. She's not a big outdoorsman, but she came with us, and I was able to be successful on a hunt. And I remember not even I remember the hug that I gave my dad after I realized that I was successful. It wasn't a hug of, oh, I'm so excited to have gotten this cow elk, but I'm so excited that I got it to do it with my mom and dad, with them being right there next to me. And so as I look forward to my kids growing up, I'm not so much as excited as being successful on a hunt as I am about sharing those memories with my kids and getting that same hug from my sons.
How did your family start getting into the outdoors? And even before you were running around, establishing that foundation of wanting to be out in nature?
We have it comes from my great grandpa, I believe. He homesteaded that property. And so it's just kind of filtered down through each one of the generations where um, there's a tradition of going up there and spending time away from the city and getting away from everything that I think um, has been passed down through each of the generations in our family, and it's got to me, and it continues to spread even bigger and wider amongst all the cousins and extended family that I have. It's just I think it's our heritage that makes it special for us.
When you're out in nature, what emotions does that evoke?
I think it brings a sense of clarity. There's so much distraction and so many different things competing for our attention when we're at work and here in the city. We have our phones, we have computers, we have TV, just so many things competing for our attention. And when you go up there, a lot of times you won't have service, you don't have um, the luxuries of life. You're dirty, you're tired, you don't have everything at your disposal. But I think because of that, you get to focus a little bit more on yourself, on your relationships, and the things that you have in front of you versus what you could potentially go out and occupy yourself with when you're here in the city. And so I really enjoy that aspect where I get to feel peace and kind of clarity and be grateful for the things that I do have when I'm out there.
How does it feel to be able to share that experience with your sons?
It's fantastic. And granted, they're 3 years old and 1 year old. They don't really know the difference yet. I'm sure they will eventually. Um, but yeah, just getting to play with them and spend time with them without the distraction of my phone in my pocket or my laptop at my desk just competing for my attention. I get to devote 100% of that attention to them.
Because they're younger, what do you do to be able to get them to experience the outdoors while accommodating, them being, 3 and 1 years old, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, it's hard to go out and do the major big game hunting that I have to go out and do by myself. I'm not going to go take them on a 5 mile hike, or I'm not going to take them overnight for a couple days at a time. It's in little spurts. But luckily, the property that we have up there, uh, there's animals everywhere. There's lakes everywhere that we can go fish at, and so it doesn't take much to get them out there. I try to bring them along with me as we go on rides on the side by side and on quads. I try to bring them with me as we go feed the horses and all the animals that are up there. So just the little spurts of involvement that they get in what I get to do, hopefully plants the seed and helps them develop a love for it, the same love for it that I have.
What do you like to fish for?
Here in Arizona, there's not a ton of fishing to do. Up in northern Arizona, there's a lot of stocked lakes with trout that they grow at the fisheries. Some of my favorite fishing is the fly fishing on the Black River. It's in eastern Arizona. But it's not a huge stream, and the fish aren't very big either, but it's really fun to get in there and fly fish for those trout that they plant in there.
What's your favorite fly to use, and what weight rod do you use?
I'm gonna admit that I'm more of a hunter than I am a fisher, so I don't even know outside of the very basics of fly fishing. I wouldn't be able to even tell you what weight rod I have. Now, if we got into the hunting stuff, I'd be able to go down to the very minute details of that kind of stuff. But fishing, I don't really know.
Well, props on successfully catching trout fly fishing. I've dabbled with that in freshwater lakes in South Florida to catch peacock bass, but I grew up using spin tackle, conventional tackle, to go bottom fishing out in the ocean. But let's jump into hunting. What do you usually have to do to prepare for a big game hunt?
So there's a lot of scouting involved. Usually, well, let me back up even farther than that. At the beginning of the year, at least here out west, there's not a huge number of game as compared to Midwest and back east. And so we actually have to apply in kind of a lottery type system, which with each state department. And so starting in February and March, we have to start thinking about where we want to apply and which species we want to hunt and when, just in the hopes that we get drawn. And then once you actually do get a tag, if you're lucky enough to get drawn out of the lottery system, then you know what date and time and location you'll be hunting. And then that's when you start to make plans to go out there a couple months before, figure out the road systems, figure out where the animals might be, how to get access. And so you're just looking, and especially here in Arizona, one of the things you're looking for is where is all the water, because we're so limited in water. You go find which tanks are filled and which tanks are dry. Um, where's the feed? Where has it been raining, and is there some better feed than other places? So just things like that. I go on long hikes to kind of figure all of that out, and that's all done before the hunt even starts. And then once the hunt comes around, then you're in a better position. You know exactly where to start your hunt.
When did you first feel comfortable being able to take on a hunt on your own without the help of, your father or your grandfather?
You know, it was pretty early on. As soon as I got my own truck, when I was 16 years old, I got my first little truck, and I spent all summer and all fall just driving these little back roads trying to figure it out. Um, it wasn't long after that I felt comfortable going out. Probably when I was 17 or 18, I would feel comfortable going on a weekend, camping by myself, and taking on a hunt by myself.
How did you feel on your first successful trip on your own when you were able to kind of come home and be like, I did this, it's all Luke's game?
Oh, that was a great feeling. I remember what it was. It was actually not in northern Arizona, so I actually got a tag to hunt javelina. And here in Arizona, I'm not sure if people across the country are familiar with what a javelina is. It's kind of like a desert pig. And I got one of those tags for down here in the desert, and went out all by myself, took the quad, and got way back in there, and eventually was successful on the first evening of the hunt, all by myself. And I remember thinking, this is it. I did it myself. It was the greatest feeling. I had no one to share it with, but I was okay with that because I know I had some personal satisfaction with being successful by myself. So that was the start of it all, and then it just snowballed from there, and haven't looked back since.
Besides the obvious difference being by yourself and having companions with you, what are some differences when you go out hunting on your own versus when you bring along someone else?
Yeah, there's a lot of camaraderie that you miss when you're by yourself, for sure. I think when I'm by myself, I treat it as kind of a personal goal that I set, and it's more of work than it is uh, a vacation or something fun to do. It's almost like I treat it as I'm going to put in the work to accomplish this goal, and it's not going to be fun. I'm going to be by myself. Physically, it's going to be more demanding because I have to do it by myself. Um, so there's a different mentality there. Whereas when you go with your friends, you're having a great time. You're joking along the way. There's some additional tactics that you can use when you hunt with a party that you wouldn't be able to use just hunting by yourself, and so you can be a little bit more successful, or increase your chances for success in that regard. So yeah, there's a little bit difference in mentality. I enjoy both of them though.
So to pivot to your career, what was it that encouraged you to get into accounting in the first place?
Yeah, so my dad is a partner at one of the big four accounting firms. He doesn't really have any family members that put him on that career path, but watching him as I grew up kind of led me in that direction. I think him and I have a lot of similar qualities and characteristics and strengths that eventually led me to go into accounting. I originally wanted to go to medical school. That didn't really work out because on my first day on the job in the ER, I passed out at the first sight of blood, and so I quickly pivoted to accounting and realized that was a better path for me. But yeah, my dad was definitely kind of pushing me in that direction.
What are some of those qualities that you shared with your dad?
I think the ability, and this goes back a little bit to hunting as well, the ability to just work by yourself and figure things out by yourself is one of the qualities that I have. I don't, going through school, I never went to the group study sessions. I like to just do it myself. And I think he saw that in me and my ability to go figure out problems. without having to ask a whole bunch of questions to other people as a good quality to have when you're trying to figure out accounting and tax issues.
And besides the lack of blood, what are some of the qualities of accounting that you felt comfortable making a career out of?
One of the things that brought me towards accounting and especially tax preparation, is the ability to scale a tax firm. I enjoy tax, and I enjoy the conceptual problems that often need to be solved when you're working through tax issues. But I'm also unapologetically financially motivated, and I want to make money, and I want to eventually be able to make a lot of money without doing as much work as I did in the beginning of my career. And so the ability to scale tax preparation, being able to hire somebody to do the groundwork, and then to be a supervisor or manager was attractive to me. And I see a great opportunity to do that in the tax and accounting field.
How does Taxfyle's platform help you reach your desired financial goals?
It offers me, I'm still in that initial stage, relatively, of doing the groundwork myself to learn and have enough experience to eventually get to be a manager and a supervisor. And so Taxfyle has been really helpful in exposing me to a lot of different tax issues and different scenarios that taxpayers may have. In other CPA firms that I've worked at, you get kind of pigeonholed into one specific type of taxpayer, and you only see a limited number of issues. Whereas Taxfyle, every client's different, and I get exposed to all the different problems that different taxpayers run into. And so I think it's helped me build that foundation that's going to allow me to be a better supervisor and manager.
When did you first hear of Taxfyle's platform?
I first heard of Taxfyle about 3 years ago. I actually left public accounting after a year and decided I wanted to go back to law school. And during my first year of law school, I made a friend who was also a CPA, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to make enough money to get by as students. And he found Taxfyle and introduced it to me, and we ran with it that spring. And it's been heaven sent for both of us. So that introduction to Taxfyle really allowed me to support me and myself and my family throughout school. It's been an awesome blessing.
How did Taxfyle help you out while you were at law school?
It was fantastic simply because I could do it at my own time. I could do returns in the morning, in between classes, and in the evenings. And not have to cater my school schedule in any way to my work schedule. I got to take all the classes that I needed to in school because I wasn't worried about planning around work. Taxfyle allowed me to do it at my own pace.
And now that you're out of law school, how does the flexibility that Taxfyle's platform allows help you out with your current goals?
In a very similar way to how it helped me through law school, it helps me here at work, because I can do my legal work during the day in your normal 9 to 5, and then before work and after work and on the weekends, I can pick up Taxfyle jobs and still continue to make money that way. And so the same benefit of scheduling that I had during law school is applicable now.
And how does having that flexibility help when it comes to being able to maintain that balance of earning money but spending quality time with your family?
Yeah, I mean, it provides me all the flexibility in the world. I can be working on a return with my kids right there, and if I need to, I can pick up and play with them for a little bit. It absolutely facilitates that. In the same way that it facilitates me spending time with my family, it allows me to run up to the cabin and spend time in the outdoors, without being tied to any sort of set schedule that I need to clock in and clock out. It allows me the flexibility to do that as well.
What was your career in public accounting like before you decided to go to law school?
I was only there for a year, and it wasn't the same. It wasn't what I really was really expecting. Um, I was hoping to get a lot of exposure with different groups in public accounting and get some experience and decide which route I wanted to go. That wasn't really the case. Like I mentioned before, I got pigeonholed into one specific group that did a lot of REITs. And so that's all I learned in the year that I was there. And I learned about that pretty well, but I wasn't able to get exposed to the variety of different tax issues that might come up. And so it was great, but I definitely wanted to get out of there and get more exposure to a variety of different things.
What was it about becoming a lawyer that you thought was the best transition for where you wanted your career to go?
So I'll back up, and when I did my master's in tax program, there was one class that we took that was about succession planning, and it was about how to help business owners transition from owning a company to either selling it to a third-party buyer or transitioning to their family, and doing so in a tax-efficient way. And the whole goal of the class was to teach us how to do that, how to use tax-efficient vehicles, and a lot of them were with trusts. And so I walked out of that class thinking, hey, I like doing that type of tax work much more than I enjoy being behind an Excel spreadsheet. And so after being in public accounting for a year and being behind an Excel spreadsheet for so long, I eventually made the choice to go back to law school so that I could do more of that work that I had experienced in that last class of my master's in tax program. And now that's exactly what I do for my job. We do succession planning, a lot of business sales, and I get to advise on all the tax implications of those transactions without having to be behind an Excel spreadsheet all the time.
What is it like being able to leverage the knowledge that you got through earning your CPA license in a realm that is outside of public accounting?
It has absolutely made a world of difference. I don't consider myself smarter than the next guy. I'm pretty average, but it just seems like everybody gravitates towards me and needs my help for one thing or another, regardless of what area of law they're working in. Our firm is a garden variety firm. All the attorneys do different types of work, from family law to probate to estate planning. And it seems like every single one of the attorneys needs me at some point or another. And again, it's not because I'm overly smart. It's more so because I speak the language and I have the ability to communicate with the financial advisors of each one of our clients, whether that be financial advisors or other CPAs. I can speak to them in a way that other attorneys and their clients can't do. And so I find myself to be very, very valuable in that regard.
I've spoken to some pros through Pro Spotlight where they make big changes in their career, going from working at a firm to either freelancing as their sole source of income or starting their own, solo practice. From your perspective, what was it like to decide to go back to school and get another degree and start a career from the ground up?
I wouldn't say that I made a 180 switch. I think ever since I started down the path of being a CPA, I think that was always in the back of my mind. I go back to the reason I became a CPA in the first place. My dad being a CPA, he's actually an attorney as well. And so in the same way that some of the qualities that made him a good CPA, I found in myself, some of the same qualities that make him a good attorney. I found in myself as well, especially the ability to think big picture, think conceptually about what's happening and not get too bogged down in the details. And so even going through my undergrad and master's program, there was always a hint that I might go to law school. So when I decided to go to law school after being in public accounting, it wasn't a total 180 shift. I had two potential career routes I could go down, and I eventually picked this one.
How does having your CPA license help you out with your law career?
One of the big things that I found was really helpful, especially in law school, was the ability to research. I think as CPAs, we do more legal research than we think we do. And even in public accounting and in different jobs that I had, I was researching and trying to figure out how to treat a certain transaction or whatever it might be. And we do a lot of research, and that translated very well when I ended up at law school. I was able to research more effectively, or I guess I should say, I found that research came more naturally to me than it did for other students. So that was it gave me a leg up as I started school over other students.
How common is it for there to be lawyers that have another kind of specialty license like your CPA license?
There's not very many. Definitely a minority of attorneys have some type of other specialization. I think in my law school of around 300 students, I can think of maybe 4 or 5 that were CPAs. I can think of another 4 or 5 that were doctors or had other type of medical or natural science background. There's not a lot of them. And I think that actually is really, really valuable as an attorney, because you have a whole different perspective and experience that you can leverage versus most students who go through their undergrad and get a pretty basic undergraduate degree that is a natural funnel to law school. But I think being able to leverage my experience in something totally separate is really valuable.
So you talked about how when you were at that public accounting firm, they had you working on one specialty. How does Taxfyle's platform help you be able to still use your tax knowledge, but at a broader scope?
Taxfyle has an interesting setup to where you're going to get taxpayers from all different, with a whole bunch of different issues. There's not one steady stream, not one steady referral source that clients are coming from. They're coming from all over the place. And so I think having worked in public accounting was helpful because it showed me that it's okay not to know everything. There's no possible way that I was going to know as much as the seniors and the managers and the partners. And I just got comfortable knowing that I didn't know everything, and they were always encouraging to go figure it out. And that's what I ended up doing for the year that I was in public accounting. In the same way, when I transitioned over to Taxfyle, I wasn't overly concerned with not knowing everything. I was by myself, a sole practitioner, helping those clients that I picked up from Taxfyle. But it didn't bother me too much because I knew that I didn't know everything and that I could go figure it out. And so that was helpful to have learned from public accounting, and it makes it a lot less stressful working for Taxfyle.
What aspects of Taxfyle's platform do you appreciate the most?
I think one of the things I really enjoy is the outsourcing aspect of it. There's the workspace where you can pick up clients who are just by themselves, but there's also the ability to get on certain platforms with one single CPA firm. And I think that has been a really cool opportunity just because everything is streamlined and I can sit down and knock out a couple returns at a time with the same system, the same work papers, and the same kind of set of checklists that the CPA firm is looking for. So that has been really helpful. I like both. I like picking up individual clients, helping them through their issues, but I also like sitting down and just knocking out a couple returns at a time. So that's one of my favorite aspects of Taxfyle.
For people who transitioned away from public accounting, how can Taxfyle's platform still help them?
Yeah, in the same way that I was kind of pigeonholed for a little bit, my guess is there's other CPAs in public accounting who are in that same boat. Taxfyle can absolutely help you get exposed to new issues. I've definitely found new things that I had to go figure out by myself, but it presented me those issues and those research opportunities in a way that wasn't overly stressful. They're a little bit smaller clients that there wasn't so many moving parts. There was just one specific issue that I had to go research. So I think it can absolutely provide CPAs the opportunity to start to develop that skill of researching and figuring things out for themselves.
And is there anything that I may not have asked you about Taxfyle's platform that you think is important for people to know?
Not anything that comes to mind right off the bat.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Luke. I really appreciated having the chance to get to know a little bit more about you and not only your career, but what it is that you enjoy.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Have a great day, Luke. That was this month's episode of Pro Spotlight. Please be sure to subscribe and follow us on social media for helpful tips, whether you run your own firm or an accountant or just want to know a little bit more about how to file taxes. Check out our blog at taxfyle.com.